Coach Mason here with Dr. Dish Basketball. I have a very special guest here with me today. Spencer, one of the best shooting coaches in the nation. I had a chance to meet him a while back. Actually, we were heading out to Jordan Lawley's facility out in Irvine, California, and had a chance to really connect and sit down and talk with Spencer a lot about shooting. He opened up my eyes to a lot of unique and different ways to look at a person's form and how they generate motion and strength through their body, and it really intrigued me. So I am very, very excited to have him on here today. We're going to go through a lot of stuff. Before we got started here, actually, before I get into anything with you, Spencer, I know you mentioned, the picture that we have up there. You said you look like you're 12, and I know the last time we went out there, your beard was probably about 2 or 3 inches. Where is that beard sitting at right now?
Okay, so I think if that beard was 2 to 3 inches last time, we can probably just go ahead and triple that.
So
Um,
you're hanging a little bit past your shoulders these days now.
yeah, a little bit past my shoulders. It is completely, out of control. I'm just happy that when I eat, food doesn't get stuck in it at this point.
So
But I
is
definitely,
no, go ahead.
what? Yeah, no. So it's definitely like a full on, I have to comb it every morning, put shampoo and conditioner in it at this point. Um, yeah, no, not the easiest thing to take care of. I'm definitely excited to kind of get out of quarantine at some point and get back to my barber and possibly just take it off. It's definitely more of a hassle than a blessing.
So when we were out there, you were starting to grow it. It was pretty long. I know Jordan was out there joking with you a little bit. Did it just come to a situation where quarantine happened and you were already at a pretty good growth and decided to keep it going, or was it something where you kind of planned on it and then all of a sudden this happened and it's like, heck, why not just let it grow out?
I feel like it kind of just has like a mind of its own. Because like logically, it makes no sense. Like the beard looks awful, but then you end up developing like this relationship where like the longer you grow it, the worse it looks. But now you have this attachment because it's with you every day and you don't really want to take it off. And then it ends up like controlling your actions. So now it's like, yeah, I look awful with the beard, but there's a certain sense of pride with it. So I'm just like, hey, you know what? Let's keep it rocking. Let's see how long we can go this time. I know last summer it got pretty long. I actually put a post on my Instagram of how bad it got last summer, and I kind of just want to like beat that mark, and then maybe just take it off after that.
Well, interesting. And outside of your beard, how are you doing? I know it's a crazy time out there. How are you staying busy these days?
So when all of this first started to happen, it was like the situation where my idea was there's three separate ways we could have gone about it. It's I feel like most people right now are going to try to like organize and maybe even take a decrease in what they do. Where if you stayed the same right now, if you found ways to stay the same, you're actually improving. But I wanted to actually find ways to like improve during this time. And not just me, but specifically like the pack, the group of kids that I coach, and find ways for them to improve. So actually, I'm up every day at 6 and trying to do a little workout at 6 and doing all my breakdowns and some shooting lessons before 11 o'clock. And then from 11 to 6, I'm on with my kids from film to skill work to strength work to just some time where we sit down and actually talk. And that goes for most of the day because, like I said, that's 11 to 6 and I have some film sessions later on. So I'm still pushing probably like 70 to 90 hour work weeks,
Right.
and kind of just like refuse to kind of just like let this time beat me as opposed to like finding out ways that we can all improve and grow closer together during this time as opposed to getting like further apart.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. I think I'm with you on it. A lot of people are really down right now, and naturally that's what's going to happen when you're kind of cooped up at home. But there is a certain population of the people that are saying, "Hey, I'm going to be better. I'm going to get out there. I'm going to do more." And it's great to hear that. I think that this is a great opportunity for not only players but trainers and coaches and parents to really look at themselves and say, how what can I do a little bit better? What can I do more with not only myself but my kids? So it's great to see that you're turning it up, even though there's a lot of people out there that are turning it down. So now, I know we've talked a couple times, and your backstory is just absolutely incredible. I mean, your work ethic, you talked a little bit about it a second ago, is crazy, but your backstory is even crazier. So let's take a step back here and talk a little bit about your story and how you got started with, training and becoming a shooting coach.
All right, so if I'm gonna try to like fast forward some of this and maybe even just like jot down some notes to make sure like I'm hitting kind of more of like this linear timeline. So when I got done playing college basketball, I took a job at Caltech, and it was one of the first coaching jobs, I took, and I was still passionate about, maybe even continuing like my own playing career. Um, One thing kind of led to another thing, and started working with Ryan Silver with West Coast Elite, and then Ryan kind of introduced me to some different people and ended up introducing me to Jordan. And even prior to Jordan, actually, another big part of my career, I worked with another trainer. His name was Matt Mazzari. He does a phenomenal job, and his brother at the time was one of the assistant coaches for the Memphis Grizzlies. So I started to have like this pretty good background within player development. I knew I wanted to be like in the trenches with players as opposed to being more on the coaching side. Um, Kind of jumping back in with Jordan, I started to transition like away from the college basketball side and more like the AAU route into just player development. That would have been about 4 years ago. I know I met Jordan. I had no idea kind of who he was. The claim to fame that Jordan was, like, I didn't really have an Instagram. So I came in and I just thought Jordan was just, like an average, normal trainer who was just really good at what he did. And it was, I think the Santa Ana winds were going on at that time. So I kind of just, picked up the broom and kind of started like mopping the floor a little bit because the floor was dusty. And I'm like, okay, let's try to find some value. Wasn't trying to impress anyone. I just didn't want the kid to slip on the court.
Right.
And I after you know, I'm sure Jordan thought it was kind of weird that this random guy just walked in the gym and started sweeping the floor. So we kind of chopped it up after that, and I actually ended up to play once. And like that game of one on one, like really set it off for him and I, because I'm sure he will tell a different story, but I'm pretty sure we played 3 games of one on one, and I took 2 out of the 3. Um, and if people watch me play now, they're gonna be like, "How did you beat Jordan?" But like, don't let me fool you. Back in the day, I was pretty good. Now I am complete trash, but I've transferred all of my ability into teaching. Um, and I sat down with Jordan, and he asked me, what I was doing, and I was kind of embarrassed to tell Jordan that at the time I was working a job in Pasadena. I was working a job in Newbury Park. I was doing a lot of like kind of flying and traveling with, Ryan Silver. So I was basically just like crashing it in the car on most nights, because that was the only like viable way for me to like go to distances that I have to go and then be able to be up and get there in the morning. Um, and I wanted to kind of add Irvine into the list too. So for me, it's like, well, that first year at coaching college, I was already sleeping in the locker room, and now we're kind of transitioning to that second year, and I was already used to like not sleeping at home. I was already sleeping in the car, and I just did the same thing with Jordan. So like most nights, I would spend about 4 days a week in Irvine, and I would just, crash it in the car in Irvine. Um, to me, it was pretty simple. The 24-hour memberships. You can shower, 24-hour fitness, and work out all day, and then be at the gym. And usually Jordan was nice enough to, take me out to lunch on most days to come in for work. And for me, it was just like a blessing. My whole day was just built around like training.
Right.
And it was within that phase that, we all start to like find this identity. And I think Jordan's very good at teaching that, but also you have to have someone who's passionate about like finding their own identity. And the first year with Jordan, I think my whole mentality was, I just want to be as good as Jordan. I just want to be as good as Jordan. I just want to be as good as him. The way that he teaches, the way people look up to him. And about after a year of working with him, I kind of got that split where, I didn't want to be Jordan kind of, anymore. I wanted to like be me and find me. And if I was going to be me and fail, then, I'd rather be me and fail than like attempt to be someone else without ever living up to like them, because you can't be someone else. You have to be you. Um, and I always had a passion for shooting, and it was always kind of my niche. And then that's when I started to just go crazy about it. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna figure out not just like the ways to teach shooting, but like let's start looking at like, just like what makes sense, like what doesn't make sense. Can we start getting inside like players' heads and understanding like why they move the way they move, and why some of their mechanics are the way that they are, and what can be taught, and what is kind of picked up organically. And then let's start talking with a lot more like biomechanics coaches, and go into that movement idea and how important is speed and strength. And let's talk with a bunch of psychologists and figure out like mentally how much can you go ahead and absorb, and then constantly try to remember, and talk with players about how hard it is to actually go ahead and fix something. Because if you do something for so long and now someone tells you like, hey, you know what, like this might work for you now, but if you want to be successful, it might not work for you 3 years from now, because the speed of the game will continue to develop and your mechanics just aren't there. And like how much trust that it takes for a player to actually like step away from what they think works, and begin to trust you in what you believe works, to where your job now is to like grow with the player as opposed to just teach that player exactly what to do.
Right.
um, so that is where kind of my path in shooting like really started. It was just, what, every day, if someone's studying 1 hour, I'm studying 4 hours. If someone's studying 2 hours, I'm going to study eight. um, my clientele with Jordan, really picked up, but I didn't really let it take away from the amount that we have to like study and grow. So I think before I knew it, my hours of work kind of picked up to around 100 hours a week, and I was just grinding at it, just like determined to just know more, grow more. And then the big kick was about a year ago, and I had it was the time where another realization moment that Jordan was going kind of into surgery. Jordan was having a second kid. Jordan was going into the surgery kind of for the brain tumor, and that was one side of things. And the other side of things was, it was in the first year that I had like my own like pre-draft class that I was leading. Because usually with the way that Jordan and I would work is, it was always we would come in to work with Jordan, and I would have like my section that I would do within that plan. And because Jordan wasn't there, and Jordan's like, okay, you're ready to go, like this is you, like you're leading, you're growing, you're the one running this. So there's a bunch of different parts kind of moving on, and ways for me to continue to come into like my own being as now just not a shooting coach, but someone like in charge of development.
Right.
It left me thinking with this idea of like, in order to be a great shooting coach, like you have to find like the best version of yourself, and work on being confident. And like that's when shooting theory just like grew completely.
Right.
Um, when you end up going with like psychologically, like yeah, you can have the best machine out there, you can have the best parts, you can put together the best like you can have the best, what's it called, like IKEA gives you like all those little pictures that you have to follow.
Yeah.
um
The instructions and all that.
yeah, you
Yeah.
can have the best instructions and the best application, but like you still have to be the one using the machine. Like if you don't believe in yourself, like you can't use the machine at all.
Right.
And when you start to realize that, and you put like the idea of like building a person before building an athlete, like with shooting theory, uh, it's like the possibilities are endless. So that's been like my path the past year, that just don't teach the player how to shoot, but like teach the player how to be confident, and teach them how to shoot, and kind of do it together. So that's kind of like my path within it, going from like sleeping in the locker room, sleeping in the car, then sweeping the gym floor, to then growing kind of like underneath Jordan, and then eventually like growing with Jordan to now, like Jordan and I are like partners within the same business, and everything is just rolling from there.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I mean, that's a test to your work ethic, and I think that that's something that we stand for at Dr. Dish Basketball is if you put in the time and the effort, the energy, you work hard, good things will happen. But first and foremost, you have to trust yourself, and you exemplify that in every way. And one thing at Dr. Dish Basketball, we really pride ourselves with working with the best in the industry. And one unique thing about Dr. Dish Basketball is that we actively seek out, trainers, shooting coaches, that are different. Everybody has their own way of teaching the game of basketball or their thought process with the game of basketball. And, that's one thing that you mentioned a little bit is that, you tried to figure out a way of how you could be, similar to Jordan or be better. But then you realize, hey, I have to be my own person. I have to teach and I have to learn and I have to present and be my own entity. And with that, you've continued to have some success. So that's awesome to see that you've developed your niche and had a lot of success with that. Now, you touched a little bit on, the different things that you're doing, but I'm really interested in how you specifically diagnose shooting issues or form issues with players, and then kind of what's your process in working through that in trying to help them, correct some of those issues and apply it on the floor.
Yeah, so this is one of those conversations which can always like go on and be endless, because I tell players all the time, like, if I'm still teaching the same thing next month that I'm teaching right now, then I failed in my job, because I have like refused to learn anything more. Um, so my teaching is very fluid, and it kind of is summed up within two words, and it's like the idea of like dynamic or set. And I tend to go much more to the dynamic way of teaching. And the difference for me is, a set way of teaching would be get the ball in the same place, lift the ball to the same place, extend the ball from the same place, and getting you really good at repeating a pattern. It's just like waking up every day and a teacher telling you, we're going to go look over, like in grammar class, like subject, verb, and noun, and all you do is look at the same sentence.
Right.
The problem with looking at the same sentence is you can begin to memorize like that sentence very easily, and the third word is this, and the second word is this, and this letter has to be capitalized. But like, that's not the way basketball should be played, and I don't believe that's the way basketball should be taught either. So in a dynamic way of teaching, I am trying to capitalize on the fundamentals, and as soon as you begin to think about the fundamentals, my a lot of my time spent in quarantine is really breaking down, like, what are the fundamentals out there that people like really just, like, you take it for what it is. And I was talking with my players yesterday. We talked for an hour about it, and I think the one that they mentioned was feet squared to the rim. And just to give you an idea of how my brain thinks, and if you look at the idea of like feet squared to the rim, all shooters should have feet squared to the rim. I'm like, okay, well, what does that exactly mean? Are we talking about before the shot? Are you talking about during the shot? Are you talking about after the shot? Are you talking about more of your shooting dominant foot? Are you talking about your guide foot? Should there be any kind of forward, backwards, like one foot should be slightly in front of the other foot? Does distance affect how much you should be squared? Like, there's a lot more questions that go into just like some of these cliche things about like hold your follow through. Like, when should you hold it? When should you not hold it? Does it do certain things and certain like um, situations change like some of your like base fundamentals? And I think these have to be questioned. So if I have a player who comes in the gym, first and foremost, it's a conversation with that player about like, where do they want to go? And depending on where they want to go, you start to build out like this skeleton or template that is very unique and specific to them. Now, I do believe that within shooting, there are some base fundamentals um, that are consistent with an all great shooters. I think the extension piece is very consistent, um, and I think the catch can be simplistic within the ideas. There is not one way to catch, and I don't think there's one way to pick up the basketball. And that is going to be like where my theory will really differentiate right now across other theories. Other theories are going to hit on, like I said before, pick up the ball kind of in the same line and extend through the same line. Well, mine tends to go, you know what, we are trying to really hound on that extension piece, but by the time you shoot it, I want you to find a way to get behind the middle of the basketball, but constantly work on more dynamic ways to get to that extension. So for instance, if I was going to have you do any kind of form shooting, we'd be lifting the ball from the right, you're lifting the ball from the left, you're lifting the ball from the bounce. Like we're getting very good at finding out how to get that ball to the peak of your shot, and then from that peak, there's a difference between like the peak of your shot and the extension. So the extension in my mind is the point in which your hand actually gets behind the basketball. The peak of your shot is going to be how quickly you can take the ball from any kind of catch position and start to like lift the ball above you. So for instance, when like if we break down, if we were on like a Zoom call, and I like looking at the most elite shooters and then trying to figure out and like work backwards, like where do I think they were 2 years ago, then 2 years before that, then 2 years before that, to like see a progression. But if we look at like Steph Curry is one of my favorite because his mechanics are much different, but he will lift the ball and his hand is still on the side of the ball, like when he brings the ball above him. Now, when he extends the ball, at that point of extension, his hand is positioned behind the basketball and he like propels the ball going forward. And if you start to break apart like elite level shooting, and you can see certain categories that fit into that dynamic way of teaching, like, yeah, it is okay to have your hand on the side of the basketball because any point that you have the basketball on is technically the middle of the basketball. You just have to make sure that hand lies flat and behind before you want to extend towards the rim. So I sit down with the player. I begin to explain these theories. A lot of players seem to like it only because I'm not telling them to um, get ready early. That's another one that I love going into with players. I'm like, yeah, let's get stiff right before we catch the basketball. That sounds like a great idea. So when we catch it, the only thing we can do is shoot. I'm like, no, when you catch it, you want to be able to be dynamic with the ball. So at least now the player guarding does, like, are you driving? Are you passing? Are you playing off the cut? And that provides you more space to shoot it.
Right.
So I think there's definitely the fun part that I love teaching about like the mechanics of shooting, but my theories of like how to create space go hand in hand with like my mechanics of shooting, and that's the value that I've picked up from doing a lot of work with Jordan. That when
Mhm.
you begin to put in the ideas of how to create space and how to do that efficiently, and I'm working on like basically a book right now on how to create space without the basketball, because the discourse with how to create space without the basketball is like zero. There is nothing out there. It's like either back cut or face cut, but there's no discourse like there would be for like route running in football or how to create space with your feet in soccer. It's just like back cut, face cut. So when you begin to put how to create space and how to create space without the basketball and tie it into actual shooting, you can really begin to figure out and see like how much time does this player actually need to shoot it based upon where his skill set is, and that begins to change the mechanics that he might need. For instance, higher release point, mid release point, lower release point, speed of, you can time the speed of his pickup, and you can really like build what I call like his and their like perfect shot.
Right.
So that's basically like my MO when I look at it, kind of why Jordan and I kind of call it the shot equation, because there's a lot of like buildup that goes into finding like their own unique mechanics.
Right. Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, like I said, you are one of the most thorough, unique thinking shooting coaches that I've ever talked to in my entire life. And I know the last time we went out there, you showed me, a spreadsheet with a ton of stuff on there, and I'm like, where does this guy find the time to go through and think of all this stuff and to break it down and to go into deep thought, just even in regular life. So it just proves that you really love the game of basketball and that you really thought through, what it means to shoot the basketball and, get outside of what, like you mentioned, the basic things. Like you get into a gym, a coach is going to say, hold your follow through and keep your elbow in. And obviously those are the basic fundamentals, but there's so much more to it than that, you can mold a player's shot around who they are, as an athlete and an individual, which is awesome. Now, you guys have one of our Dr. Dish CTs in the facility there. Talk a little bit about how the shooting machine has helped enhance what you do.
Yeah, of course, and just kind of to piggyback on the last idea, 'cause I think it would be cool to mention that the main reason that I love coaching, and this is kind of a side note, but it's important to me because it's like my core value within coaching has nothing. I am obsessed with basketball only because basketball is my way of teaching, and like I love teaching. I think the issue with players right now is players are taught to like be like subservient and to only do what like what a coach would say. I wrote it down yesterday. I kind of just want to bring it up and almost ask you a question real quick. I have to find the sheet that I had real quick. Here it is. And this is different. Then we can get back to the podcast. Can I take 2 minutes and ask you a question because it popped up in my mind?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so if and here it is. So like the issue I see with coaching right now is, and it falls in the shooting too, is like a lot of players right now within traditional coaching, it's like all they're taught to do is like seek approval, right? If you do this, you're good. If you don't do this, you're bad. And whenever you're taught to seek approval from someone, you end up going into this wave of getting away from like who and what you are, and like you mold your identity into like who and what you want the person teaching you to be like.
Right.
How do you think, and this is what I was on yesterday for a lot, and I'm trying to figure out like how do we begin to like change that dynamic? And you teach players like, yeah, it's like it's good to be like a soldier, but like you got to be a soldier that's like independent, who can think for yourself, as opposed to us constantly teaching soldiers who are like dependent, where you're only listening to the person above you and you don't have a mind of your own. And if you do have a mind of your own, like it's brainwashed by that point.
Right. No, you
So
know
that,
what? This is what I would say, and I'm with you on it. I think the first thing that I like to do personally when a player comes into the gym is have a conversation with them. I think a lot of times trainers and coaches, they're so 8 to 9, 9 to 10, and so on and so forth. I got to try to get as many drills in as possible, and I have to do this, do that. That they forget that the person or the player that they're working with is an individual, and they're different from all the other kids that that you've worked with. And so the first thing I like to do is say, where are you at as a player right now? Like, what type of player are you? Who are you as a basketball player? Are you a guy that slashes or a girl that slashes? Do you shoot the basketball out, stationary, off the dribble? Like, what are the things that you do great right now? What are the things that you want to work on? And I like to just watch the person play. Oftentimes I'll tell a parent, hey, if you have any film or anything, send that over beforehand so that I can see the type of person that I'm working with, because then I can get an idea of who they are before I get into telling them some of the things that I think that they should work on. And you mentioned it best, like every trainer for the most part, or shooting coach was a player themselves or have some type of experience playing the game of basketball. And every person's different. For me, I wasn't a great shooter. I could shoot the basketball, but my strengths were slashing and getting to the hoop. So naturally, I have a little bit more strengths in really being direct and specific on how to do those things and use your body to get to the hoop. But then again, I was also very lean and I'm 6'5", 6'6", and athletic. So some of those things may not translate to a kid that's 6 feet, and maybe not as quick. So for me, it's really diagnosing who that player is, how they move, the athleticism that they have, how we can change or increase that. And then saying, this is a way that you can learn how to be the best version of yourself. If you want to be this type of player, here are some of the things that you can do to become that player. And I'm going to help guide you along that path. I'm not going to tell you that if you don't do this or you don't do that, you're not going to be great, because everybody level of greatness or success is dependent on what they want or who they want to be. So I love that, because I know that there are a lot of trainers that say, if you don't do it this way, if you don't do it like this, you don't do it like that, you're not going to be successful. And it's almost like you're a drill sergeant, or you're forcing a certain type of way on a player when you may not know the type of skill set or athletic ability or mind ability that that player has. So being able to really take a step back and say, I want you to tell me a few things before we get into it, has been super beneficial for me.
No, no, I love that because you look at it and it's like, where does it end? If they're trying to do it from you, then trying to seek approval from teachers, then now they go into like their day-to-day every lives, and all they know how to do then is either seek approval from like their peers, or
Right.
if you're not seeking like approval from your peers, you're doing the other thing, and now you're seeking like you're gonna end up resenting them too. And now we have these players who are around their teammates and they don't know how to like joke around or be within a teammate like atmosphere, because all they know how to do is either be under or be against.
Right.
And
Right.
I think that's something that really has to change within our teaching, getting players to just be who and what you are, and be you, and like let us help guide you, as opposed to going the route you want to go, as opposed to saying like, this is the route you have to go. And that's the main reason I love coaching, is right there. It's that idea of teaching, any one of my young kids, Jacob, Ethan, Martin, Austin, Brandon, how to be them, you know?
Right. No, 100%. And
But
that's awesome, man. That's awesome.
but with the doctor dish, going back to your question, what I love doing right now with the dish is I have like any one of my kids kind of just go in trouble. I'm like, hey, like let's go and myth bust something today. And the reason I call it that is because we're going to take one idea and one subject, and we are just going to pound one subject as much as we can, until we get to like the bare bottom idea, and then build it back up. So if we're talking about, uh, I don't know, if you give me any topics, since you started talking about feet early, I'm like, let's just talk about feet. And I could have one player shoot right now, and the next four are with me and my clipboard, and we got the video going on. And one thing I like doing a lot is when they're shooting, is kind of giving like that direct video impact. So there's no like great way how to do it yet, because I don't have all that technology, but I'll try to position the camera to where they like, if we want to take a break from shooting, he can just go and click and watch his own shot. So it's not a lot of feedback from me. I'm almost teaching the other players what I'm trying to teach, as he is just shooting. And what that allows us to do is work on like what is most comfortable for him. So if we just take even base, all right, cool. You know what? Let's take 10 shots from this distance, back up, take 10 shots from this distance, back up, take 10 shots from this distance, back up, 10 shots from this distance. Okay, let's do it again with your base being this way. Okay, let's do it again with your feet being this way. Okay, let's do it again with your feet being a little bit wider, your feet being a little bit skinnier, your feet being turned a little bit. And what it allows you to do is, like, true shooting, I believe, is the same as being like a scientist, where you're looking at trial and error. You're running
Right.
experiments. And I think the Dr. Dish is great for a lot of reasons, but one that not a lot of people touch upon, which drives me crazy, is like the true way of development is one, like, do you have the film? And with the access to film I have, it's like, okay, cool, like we have the film. So if you have the film, you have like everything, you have all the research. Now if you have the research, now it's just about like conducting the actual like experiment side of it, like what works and what doesn't work. And this allows us to really find out what works in a very efficient amount of time, because we don't have to be shagging rebounds all over the place. The other players can be like being research analysts, like partners, like just like me. And one player gets to shoot it. And then when you do that and you have players actually study the game, and now they're on the court with me, now I'm teaching them, like they understand the teaching at a much deeper level, because they think about things in a deeper level. And the best part is, because they're so young, they're not as jaded by things that I might think are already truths that are out there. And they might say, well, what about this? Or this doesn't make sense to me. I might not have brought that point out. So that's a a really fun thing that I like to do. The other thing that I like to do is you can use the doctor dish the same way as you might use a tennis ball or any kind of object as a timing tool. And if you figure out the amount of time that you need in between like an offensive and defensive possession, and you are by yourself. So right now, if it's any player who has a doctor dish, um, I guarantee you, I can put you through a workout that will simulate a game. If you have a dish at home and you are not working out in quarantine, I will lose my mind
Right.
because I will lose it because now I'm like, okay, all we have to do is like find out what you want to accomplish and position the dish into where like yeah, like taking reps in front of the dish, like that's fine. Like I'm all for shooting reps, but I I love teaching that testing theory of the game. And if there's a space that I excel at, it's base mechanics are always going to change, but testing how fast you actually can go is the most fun part about training right now. And for instance, you set the doctor dish at the top of the key, and we do things like this all the time. And it's you know, the dish gives off like a beeping sound, and by the time it gives off that third beep, I mean you're gunning for the basketball. But it's okay, can we basically come off a curl cut from let's say the corner, or let's just call it actually dishes at the top of the key. So you know what, maybe it's an elevator kind of screen. Can we start at the block, come off an elevator kind of screen, get our feet around, basically try to have that anchor foot. So maybe I'm a right hand shooter and I'm attacking from the left block. The left block for me is if I'm looking at the rim, it's the left block. So if I turn around, the block that it might appear on is on the right block as I'm running up. Let's anchor that right foot in, come off the elevator screen and have that left, right, and shoot. Okay. Now, as soon as I shoot, if there are, let's say, 8 seconds on the machine before it goes again, can I shoot? Can I sprint the half court, let's say, and if we have a full court, and if I'm by myself, can I go into like 3 slides right, 3 slides left, get a backboard touch, and then sprint my butt off to get back down to the block? And then can I come off that same elevator screen again? And what you see is like, yeah, you might take 3 reps and just be done. And then, okay, cool. Can I eventually get 4 reps? Can I get 5 reps? And then you end up building up like this game shape where I know if you make 20% with me in a gym, you are damn near going to make 30, 40% in the game because I'm hoping that in the game you have more time, and with more time can create like more options.
Right.
Um, so I love using the dish for things like that because I'm not telling the player to run any faster than I'm not telling him to work any harder because he has set that goal for himself. Um, I like doing a lot of if you have 2 players with a doctor dish, like a ton of like drive and kick screening action where you know as soon as you hear that beeping sound, you know maybe you're setting the off ball screen, the person um, comes maybe the screener goes ahead and flashes back to the dish and catches, but like where a lot of the reads can be made up between the 2 players as opposed to the coach always saying what to do.
Right.
Because what the dish does is it gives you a rebounder and it gives you a passer. So technically it gives you 2 more people. So if you're in a workout with 1, you really have 3. And if you're in a workout with 2, you really have 4. Um, I feel like you can do a lot of passing workouts with the dish. Also, if you know you're a guard and you want to work on, you know, you're playing at elite level and you're coming off like lobs to the rim, you can really do. Um, it's just like the possibilities of it are endless. I never do the same workout twice, only because, like I said, if we bring it back to like the same math problem, to understand like a base theory, yeah, you might look at the same equation a couple times, but when you really get to work, you're looking at a different math problem. The teacher's never gonna give you a test with the same one you saw in the like the lesson notes.
Right.
Um, so with the dish, that I am the same exact way, and I've used the dish. I've turned the dish around to shoot over the top of the dish. You can work on the dish to kind of go back cuts to the rim or face cuts to the rim, or you know, speeding up to catch the ball and pulling the dish on the perimeter.
Right.
I know you guys had a oh, what is his? I can't believe I forgot his name. You had him in the gym and you put him on your Instagram. Um, the big man coach who played for a long time.
Uh, was it Jim Peterson?
I forgot who it was. I gotta go back and check. Um, but um, but it's you know there's always like a new way that you can like apply it and move it around, and I think that's what like this time right now that I'm trying to build is like this place where coaches can come together and like share theories and not just find out like, oh, who is the best coach, but no, like find out like how can we best help and move basketball and teaching into a better place. And that's why I was so excited to kind of get on the phone and start talking.
That's awesome, man. So it looks like you're getting a lot of great usage out of it, and it's great to see how creative you've been with the machine and applying it with your coaching and all the things that you do. Now, before we get out of here, you know, everybody's kind of been doing the social distancing thing and been in quarantine, and I know here in Minnesota the weather's getting nice for us, so it's really difficult to stay inside. But before we get out of here, what's one thing you look forward to most when this quarantine ends and things start to open up?
Oh, completely outside of basketball, I just want to get with my team and hang out and literally do nothing. I just
Right.
want to sit down and like my team right now is everything. If they want to just hang out and sit down and go for a meal, and what I mean is like my team is our whole group, Jordan, my kids, all my players, um, and just like share that experience about like being together. I mean, it's completely separate of basketball. I think this time really makes you reflect and take a lot of things for granted. And I've definitely not had a shortage of basketball right now because I'm still doing it, let's say 90 hours a week.
Right.
Um, but just get with those people that we haven't seen in so long, and just let them know like we cherish you not just because of what you know, but because of like who you are.
Right.
And then on a side note, like yes, I would love to be in a gym and just run everybody and find out who's in shape and who's not in shape and who's doing what I'm saying and who's not doing what I'm saying. And I'm just it's been a really cool time. I know it's been a really like scary time for a lot of people, but it's been a cool time for me to say that I get to see like the players that I have like chose to take a lot of the it was time for them to grow up, and I mean they're up and training every single day from 11 o'clock to 6 o'clock Monday through Friday, and they're training on weekends. And if you look at that, I'm like, yeah, like that's being a pro at like 13 years old. And my pros right now are still calling me, and sometimes I tell them like, hey, like I can't talk till it's 9 o'clock your time, and then we'll do film from 9 to 11. um, so I'm excited to have a meal with all my people, and then get in the gym and get back to work, and hopefully even make more improvement than we did before.
Yeah, I think we all are, man. It's a tough time, but I think it makes us appreciate what we had before and the things that we can do in the personal relationships and that face-to-face interaction and how powerful it can be on our lives. So I really do appreciate you taking the time to jump on with me here today. I mean, you just spit out nugget after nugget. I mean, I learn more every single time I talk to you, and very very fortunate to be able to work with you. Here at Dr. Dish Basketball. Now, if people want to check you out on IG, can you go out and go ahead and shout out your IG handle for us?
Yes, my IG is really simple. It's just my last name, Levy B-ball. So it's just Levy BBALL. And if you have any questions, just feel free to go ahead and send me a direct message. Um, and if someone says like, hey, I want to jump on the phone with you, like I'm real quick right now, definitely during this time too, to just randomly start calling like a lot of my followers. I usually call about two or three a day anyways, and they're always shocked. And we just like chop it up and we talk shooting for a little bit, and that's kind of what I am all about. I'm never going to tell someone no, I don't want to talk. So yeah, feel free, call, text, send me a DM. And yeah, let's just talk shooting.
That's awesome. Well, again, I suggest everybody out there listening go follow him, look at his content that he's putting up, chat with him. You won't be disappointed for sure. And thanks again, Spencer, for jumping on with us here at Dr. Dish Basketball. For more information on our shooting machines and how they can help enhance your skill set, your program, make sure to visit us at drdishbasketball.com. You can find us on all of our social channels at Dr. Dish B-Ball. Make sure to check us out. We have great content coming out every day. Thanks again, Spencer, and I really appreciate you taking the time to jump on with us.
All right. Yes, sir. It was fun. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, you take care.